Good evening and welcome to the Town of Dudley Planning Board meeting for May 8th, 2024. Present this evening, we have Thomas Chinaki, Clerk of the Board, Richard Clark, Member, David Durgan, Member, Daniel Edmiston, Vice Chairman, myself, Guy Horn, Chairman, William Scanlon, Town Planner. First item on our agenda is a note that says, or a notice that the meeting is being recorded. Second item on our agenda, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we've got continuation of a public hearing on a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for shared driveways. And I would like to thank Mr. Briere for his input at the last meeting and for his written response for us. If you would like to come up and share that with us.
I did print out some extra copies just in case somebody doesn't have it.
We're still, just so we know, we're still going by the one that you had.
No, exactly. There have been no changes whatsoever. Since that email, no changes whatsoever.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, I have a copy of something that has 13 segments to it. Is this the one that is current? That you would
Yep.
ask you?
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That's the one I got. Great.
First, John, again, because it's a public hearing, John Breyer, 16 Flaxfield Road. Again, my sincerest appreciation for the openness of this board and allowing citizen involvement and commentary on this. As a citizen, my primary concern was, just slowly the erosions of people's rights over time and regulations being passed with good intent, but somehow affecting that. And so you allowing me to express those concerns and try to offer some compromises or some alternatives is truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciated. So thank you. It's a very professional board. With that being said, what I emailed over does take care of that primary concern I had about the original intent of the shared driveway with the two homes, right? The in-law, and then I realize times change, but it still preserves that as a right for those individuals. So there's no special permit required for them. However, what it does do, and I think this helps with some of the planning board's concerns, is it does establish some additional standards if someone decides to exercise that right. And it made good sense to have a wider entry into the public streets and to make sure that there was 4 inches of asphalt so that things didn't affect the public roads, and ultimately the taxpayers would have to pay that down the road. And so what I tried to incorporate in that was preserving that right for the two, and then adding a lot of those additional standards that the planning board wanted. But what you'll see is not there is like the 500-foot length. And the reason why is because one of the primary reasons was for emergency services. So if someone does buy, say, 100 acres and wants to go 700 feet, I think this covers it because private driveways branching off the shared drive shall be reviewed and approved in each case by highway, fire, and police to ensure emergency vehicle access. So it's broad enough to cover those concerns. And then as I was thinking about it, there are going to be situations when maybe a third does come up. That should be a planning board special permit. There was never the intent, right? Because originally the shared drive was for like 2, we were thinking, not 3. And then I started, as I started looking at other towns, I was like, boy, what we don't want to do is have a negative impact on economic development, because it's not clear, right? If you have a shared drive, if someone on the commercial side could exploit this as a loophole. And so what we wanted to make sure was that anything above 3 or commercial regardless, had to come before the planning board for a special permit. And then you can use the standards that are applicable for that. So, I thought, I think it's a pretty good compromise. I did put Scott's concern, just saying it, about the easements for the water sewer, that's in there. So hopefully it's acceptable. The one thing I was unsure of, I saw it in another town bylaw. And I was like, I wonder with the 5 that went around the subdivision control regs, that if this last one, number 13, an occupancy permit for any structure, the common driveway has to be 100% complete first. And I thought that was good. I was thinking about this particular scenario because, right, if they do 5 different homes, and let's just say I'm the first one that buys that home, and then they continue to run heavy equipment over that road and they destroy it, are they going to come back to me and say, oh, geez, as part of our shared drive thing, you got to help us fix it? And so I put that in there. It's really your prerogative. And if you wanted to add anything in there in regards to the special permit and commercial or 3, you will find no opposition from me in any way, in full support on the floor for this. So I don't know if you have any questions about what you're looking at.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Breyer. You're obviously a quick healer. For those of you that haven't seen the Board of Selectmen meeting this past Monday, it is in excess of 3 hours, 3 hours and 16 minutes, I think. Mr. Breyer was one of the main contestants, if you will.
Thank goodness for Advil.
Took more hits than the Bruins did, if you will, on Monday night. Somewhat disingenuous, I think, on the part of the Board of Selectmen, who have often harped on the fact that we don't have citizen participation. And yet, for some reason, it was interpreted by someone on the Board of Selectmen that Mr. Breyer, as a resident, participating and involving himself in town government and a public hearing, which this obviously is, that somehow that was a detriment to his reputation and his character. I don't quite understand where that was coming from, and I suspect the individual who made the comments isn't quite sure where it comes from either. Because often enough, at any number of meetings, they have begged and pleaded for people to come forward and be involved. And when someone does, for someone to be disrespected, I think is absolutely disingenuous, at least despicable in addition to that.
Well, thank you,
so
Mr.
I'm on
Clark.
record officially, and I hope that they pay some attention to that. They obviously knew that Mr. Breyer was working with us because his involvement with us was mentioned on a couple of occasions. And again, as a member of this board, I welcome his involvement as we would welcome the involvement of Mr. Wetruba, anyone else who might come into the door, if you will. Again, a public hearing, we value public input, at least this board does as far as I can recall. We've always done so, and I hope we would always continue to do so.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the 13
I
items?
thank Mr. Breyer for his input, and I have no problems with this at all, frankly. I think my concern is that we get something, and this is definitely something. It brings us a lot further than where we are currently, and I welcome the opportunity for us to get this before the town and hopefully approve the town meeting.
Mr. Chaki, any questions?
Oh, they look good.
Good? Mr. Berry?
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
I have a number of comments.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, I thought you did a nice job
Oh,
here,
you
John.
found us.
We'll be down here.
Well, we gave you the wrong room number. We were only there for about 3.5 minutes anyway, so we're in the big room now. Thank you.
So my comments are more in the nature of trying to improve this article. I don't have any major changes, just sort of minor tweaks. I have a number of things, so I can go through them one at a time if you like. Under the very top paragraph, it says to see if the town will adopt, to amend, etc. Subsection 4F by, and I would insert deleting the existing text and inserting the following underlined language. So essentially rewriting this whole paragraph F. So just delete and then add this. The next item I have is under paragraph 2, it says in all commercial business industrial districts. We don't have many commercial districts. We only have one business district. So I would delete the word commercial, because we don't have any commercial districts.
Could we in the future have a commercial district that it might apply to?
No.
We do have it. It's an adult entertainment district? Would that be, I mean,
I don't think so.
the courts are
That's a-
wrestling with
that's a
that right
special
now, I
purpose.
believe, in some sense, but that's somewhat commercial by
Because,
nature,
you
isn't
know,
it?
it mentions business, industrial, and light industrial, which we do have,
Mhm.
but we don't have any commercial districts.
As such.
Well,
So
the
designated.
commercial district is the business district.
Okay.
And that's already mentioned.
So
Um,
the proposed change that you would make is, again,
Delete commercial.
Delete commercial.
delete commercial, okay, and it's just business and industrial.
And then on the last line, it says specifications of roads as outlined. I would say they're really not outlined, they're very detailed. So they're as, the roads as specified in the town of Dudley, rules and regulations. And it's not regarding the subdivision of land, the title is governing the subdivision of land. So I would delete regarding and insert governing to be the correct citation for the rules and regs. I would note that on paragraph 4, it says the shared driveway shall not disrupt existing drainage patterns or cause materials to enter the traveled way of a public street. We had another sentence in there, and if you refer to previous page in your binder, under the old number 6, we had the second sentence that says the applicant shall submit a grading plan showing existing and proposed conditions to demonstrate compliance with this requirement. So I'd ask John, why did you take that sentence out, and does the board think that it should be put back in, or?
I took that out from the original because, again, I didn't want to increase the costs. Already we're going to increase the costs for the 20 by 20 asphalt entryway. And I just thought that if they had to do a drainage plan and hire a surveyor, that's going to add probably a couple of $1,000s onto the cost of what should just be a right. And that's why I took it out. But, you know, if there's a way to, you know, add that, or maybe we could say for three or more, or any by special permit, that a drainage plan in detail would be required, if there's a way to work that out.
Yeah, what we're talking about basically is creating a bylaw that allows for a shared driveway by some instances by right.
Yeah.
I don't think that by right, though, applies to any kind of disruptions to the public streets. So if we don't have proper drainage around that, and if we get a storm like we did today, and everything from that property, that driveway goes into the street, I don't think that would be something that would be by right. I think that it would be a good idea to have some kind of language in there. Any water that basically comes from a person's property should be their business and not the town's business. So there should be some kind of way to word it so that water coming off of a driveway, stormwater, has to be intercepted and diverted and away from the streets. That's what you're getting at, right, Bill? More or
Yes.
less?
Yeah.
And so the way I think you do that is to have a drainage plan, but again, as John mentioned, that's additional cost. But, so the benefit, as you mentioned, is, you know, to maintain the public ways free from damage.
Yeah, I mean,
At the end of the day, if the planning board decides what's best, I'm going to support you in your decision there.
So from the older version, number 6, are we looking at taking the last sentence, the applicant shall submit a grading plan showing existing and proposed conditions to demonstrate compliance with this requirement?
That's the question on the table.
Okay.
yeah, I think a grading plan, though, is gonna be a bare minimum, because we're gonna wanna see what the driveway's grading, we're gonna wanna see they have less than a certain percentage at the very beginning, right? So a grading plan's a bare minimum. What I'm talking more about, and maybe this is gonna be up and beyond, is actually some kind of drainage plan. Where's the water going?
Water management.
Right,
system,
water management's a
put
better
in
word, you know, that's the.
Water management
rule
on
number
your
one of any
property.
kind of site work is to manage water.
Yeah.
Where's it going, and what do you do with it?
All right, I guess it sounds like, Mr. Chairman, we need language to that effect somewhere. I'm not sure what that would read like.
So do you think we could just plug that sentence from our number 6 into this number 4, Bill, or our original number 6, I mean?
To Dan's point, we could say the applicant shall submit a water management plan.
Yeah,
Okay.
Would that be acceptable?
yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to reduce engineering costs potentially, we could say a water management plan of action. That might be more of a verbal best rules of thumb or something, or rules of construction, and if we deem that there's too steep of a grade or too much water coming down, maybe then there would be, something would be engineered?
Well, you have to excuse my ignorance, because I've never constructed a home. But, right, usually this is going to be used for new construction. And when they go for a building permit, right, there's got to be engineering plans anyhow, right? So is drainage usually part of that plan? Standard?
Correct, but there's certain A&R situations where if it's not an actual subdivision, that there's a lesser requirement for site plans or for engineer drawings in general. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but if for a driveway or shared driveway, if we have the certain amount of slope at the beginning of it and the rest of it meets slope requirements,
Yeah.
it's kind of all we have in our bylaws, isn't it? We don't really have anything that says water has to be diverted to a
Yeah.
culvert or caught in a trench drain or anything else. That's why I'm just thinking that some kind of
Yeah, because
management action plan or plan of action would be good.
when I was looking at, like, if it's just a normal driveway cut, right, they have the slope and grades and language in there. But I don't think they have the specifics on the drainage in there. I don't recall seeing that. But it's the board's prerogative on that.
I get the sense the board feels there should be some
We would add something to
Some
number
plan to prevent
number
that.
4 for drainage.
control drainage.
Okay. What's your next one, Bill?
Under number 6, in addition, the town shall never, under any circumstances, be held liable. I think liable connotes some kind of legal status that you can or cannot be sued. So I would prefer to use the word responsible. So the town shall never be responsible for construction, reconstruction, maintenance. Just to eliminate that sort of legal, we're really talking more about financial obligations.
Yeah, liability.
Right.
Okay.
Be responsible?
Never be responsible.
Shall never, under any circumstances, be responsible.
Again, under any circumstances, it's kind of redundant. Never is never, you know.
Right.
So never under any circumstances is redundant, but we can leave it in, I guess, for emphasis.
Okay.
Under number 7, we don't have a DPW, we have a highway superintendent, so I just changed DPW to highway. Under number 9, John, you did a nice job here trying to capture what the Water and Sewer Commission liked, but I think Scott also mentioned something about the service lines would always remain private and would never be considered part of the town system. So I wonder if we should add something to that effect, that the private lines would not be accepted by the Water and Sewer Department. Does that make sense?
That's kind of their jurisdiction,
Yeah.
not ours.
Yeah, I would just say that they have to sign off on it.
That's there
Yeah.
already, so you don't think we need to add anything?
They need to give their approval on anything and everything regarding their department.
Okay.
I don't think we should put anything in our bylaw that dictates what they're gonna do, because if they change their mind next year, we'll have to go back and rewrite the bylaw.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so that's fine, so then won't do anything with that.
Number 9's out.
Under number 11, the last sentence seems to end awkwardly, and I'm not sure what should be here.
Oh,
It
yeah.
says, numbered signs shall be placed in a manner so that they will not be blocked during heavy snowpack and/or the driveway. And I'm not quite getting the meaning of
That
it.
was a cut and paste from another bylaw, and I think, yeah,
I think you could end it with snowpack.
yeah, you got it.
Okay,
Honest miss.
okay.
Visibility.
And then under number 12, The second sentence says, "The must be clear." I think you want the apron
Yeah,
must be clear. And I would, in unobstructed access, and I would say, and provide unobstructed access.
yep.
So the apron must be clear and provide unobstructed access. And then on number 13, sort of getting back to your point earlier, John, about plans. You say here the engineer must submit stamped letter saying the driveway was constructed in accordance with a plan, but you don't require a plan.
Yeah, that was more for the special permit. When I put that in there, I was thinking anything that the planning board gives approval for, or like the 3, or anything in the commercial, that be in there.
So I guess, I'm not sure.
How to clean that up.
Yes, exactly.
Just eliminate it?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's a good thought. I'm just not sure.
So we would just need to put an occupancy permit for any structure requiring a special permit.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
In order to,
Perfect.
Say that again, Guy?
An occupancy permit for any structure requiring a special permit shall not be granted until the common driveway is 100% complete. In order to be considered complete, the design engineer must submit a stamped letter certifying the common driveway site work has been constructed as shown in the approved plans. So we just basically take off a little bit about the common driveway shall not be granted and just say an occupancy permit for any structure requiring a special permit.
That works for me.
If I may, the town meeting is May 20th. We're sitting here on May 8th.
Yes.
When is the deadline for this to be included in the warrant?
The deadline is passed.
The deadline is passed,
Yeah,
so we're talking fall.
The warrant will contain the previous language that we had submitted. So we need to act on an amendment. So we need to draft up and finalize this new language and have it as a handout.
Exactly.
And then, John, I think it would be up to you to come to the podium and make an amendment with the handout. And then, well, whoever makes the amendment.
Yeah, I would say.
Somebody moves
well, when you
Yeah.
just,
to make the amendment, and then reference the new handout. And then that would be considered if the board makes the amendment itself, then there's no need for it to be a friendly amendment, because it would be so considered. If John makes the amendment, then the moderator would ask, does the planning board accept this
Yeah.
language as a friendly amendment, and then you could say
I
yes.
think if we're gonna have it all taped up, I think we could move to make the amendment, and then we would just have to read through each one of the changes so that we could, if we could have that, it's basically rewriting what we originally proposed.
Right.
And say, this is the new language.
So I would think we could have the handouts available when people walk in,
Give it to them.
so they can have it, because most people don't read the warrant before they get there anyway.
You just know there's a driveway article.
Right, exactly.
So we're rewriting the driveway article, here's the new language. Is everybody in agreement? If they say no, then we have to vote on the original one, we can just ask it to be passed over.
Well, I don't see any problem with that. I think this would be acceptable, correct, presented to town meeting.
Do we need to vote on this amended?
Well, you need to
version?
recommend to town meeting.
Right, recommend.
So I would say you
usually
would,
we go on the recommendation that indicate the planning board has voted unanimously
Yeah,
to
so
approve the amendment.
so tonight you would need to recommend
All right,
this
now-
new
Have we captured all of the language that we want going forward? I know you came up with some great wording, and my penmanship is not
Okay.
equal to the
That's
task.
okay. I've got it
I
written
don't know
down.
if Laura's been able to catch most of what you said.
No,
Hopefully she's
I'll make
better
the
out.
changes. I can make the changes.
Okay. All
And
right.
I'll read them by you, John, just to make sure that,
No, totally.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the amended version.
We have to
I'll
close the
close the
public,
public meeting,
we have to close the
certainly.
public hearing, so.
Mr. Chairman, before you do, going back to point number 2,
Yep,
Mr. Clark had a really good question about the adult entertainment district, and I understand there's no commercial district. So what if you said in all, right, business, industrial, and light industrial zoning districts, and all commercial uses? Because,
Why don't you just say all non-residential districts?
That's what I was about to say.
well, there would be, the adult entertainment district is an overlay district in an industrial district already
okay,
on Fish Road.
right,
So I think it's in an underlying
industrial.
industrial district.
Yeah. So I think we're covered.
okay.
We did, Mr. Wetruba did have his hand up
Oh, I'm sorry.
a while back.
Thank you for your time again, and I appreciate everything.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Steve Wetruba, 22 Lawrence Road. I know we use them interchangeably all the time, and we know what that they mean the same thing, but just for the purpose of continuity and for legal reasons, maybe on item 13, you might want to change common driveway to shared driveway, because I think that's the only time common driveway pops up in this whole thing, and it's called the shared driveway standards. So, other than that, and the changes that Bill mentioned, I think it looks good. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wetruba. Okay, any other comments from the board? Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:35. And Mr. Clark, if you would like to make your motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the amended version of the shared driveway standards as presented this evening, and hopefully present that at the town meeting on May 20th.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you for your involvement, and again, this was a public hearing, and the public has been heard.
Okay. All right, so we have some representatives from Central Mass Regional Planning with us this evening, so
Distinguished representatives.
we're gonna go a little bit out of order on our agenda. We're gonna take them under new business right now. If you guys would wanna come up to the table? And if you wouldn't mind signing in on the sheet right there, that would be great.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Janet.
How are you, Bill? Good. Long time no see.
Yes.
Where's this on the agenda?
We talked about it at last meeting that we would.
I was here last meeting, that's why I'm asking where it's at on the agenda.
Okay, sorry.
It's-
Last meeting, we talked about,
Where's it at on the agenda?
we had a conversation about the,
Not on it. Checking.
about the master plan and how old it was and what kind of problems it can create for us going forward with getting grants and things of that nature.
To Mr. Edmondson's point, it is not on the agenda as such, and I would propose that we shoehorn it in, if you will, under the planner's plate, and given that that is Mr. Scanlon's bailiwick, he's, I think, given consent to that.
I was just asking questions.
Yes, no, it's a valid question, and for anyone who's watching the video, it's certainly one that deserves an answer.
That's fine with me?
That's fine with me,
Okay.
thank you. And the genesis of this whole thing is, we're looking, I have here a copy of, and I think it's a limited edition, of the Dudley Master Plan of 2000. It's an interesting document. It's kind of like opening a time capsule, if you will, in terms of what people thought at the time and where they saw things going or thought they saw things going. Sadly, some of the information in here is based on data that goes back to 1990. So where it's 2,024 years old then, or now, some of the data is approaching, well, over the 30-year mark, if you will, in terms of its validity. And certainly the town is no longer what it was in 2000. So again, the Mass General Law doesn't require us to necessarily update this, but something that is a document of 30 years, let's say, in origin, that might not be a bad idea to take another look at it, if you will, and see where we are. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of things in here in terms of implementations. I think chapter 13, lucky 13, if you will. And it might be interesting for us as a board at some point, looking into this, seeing where we stand in terms of those implementations or some of those recommendations. I think some of them have been acted on and some of them are still awaiting action. And that I was asked at a previous meeting to send an email to the CMRPC, and quite frankly was overwhelmed by the response that I got. I think everybody there that I've ever spoken to or even knew the name of said that they would like to be involved in this and welcome that enthusiasm. I noticed that in the 2000 document, we had the assistance of a Stephen J. Wallace as project manager from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. So they are involved in long-standing involvement, if you will.
So I think one of the big questions we had, like, you know, we need to go to probably the Board of Selectmen and explain that we need to get this done, you know, in the next year or 2 years. As I don't know how long it's going to take as the project goes, but we have no idea of like what does it cost, how long it would take. So we wanted to get some input that we could relay to the Board of Selectmen and say, like, you know, we need, and how would we pay for this? You know, like, could it be a debt exclusion? I don't know. Could it be, is there grants available to pay for part of it? And one of the things that that Bill brought up was like, you know, how much input from the town do you need to be able to do something like this? I mean, like, is it gonna take a full-time person to supply you the information you need to when you start writing this? And if that's the case, do we have to, you know, we'll have to budget for that person also and include it in the overall expense. So those are just some of the questions that we have and want to know how to go forward.
You want to start?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we have some good news
Okay.
to answer some of those questions, but I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Janet Pierce. I'm the Executive Director with the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and thanks so much for inviting us to the meeting. It's really exciting to hear when communities are interested in their master plans. I have with me today Dominique Dutremble, who's the Director of Comprehensive Planning, and she's overseen many master plans throughout our region. We represent the city of Worcester and 39 surrounding communities, Dudley being one. We're very involved with Dudley on many projects, and I know Dominique has a list. And we would take all of those projects, including the community development block grants that we've been working with you on for a few years now, and incorporate that into the master plan as well. So with some of those projects that we're already working on, we can take those, review them, and bring them into the master plan as well. And you have a master plan right now, so we can build off of that. And I think I'm safe to say that one of your first assignments would be to look at those implementation strategies and to see what you have actually implemented. You may be surprised of the progress that you did make over those 30 years towards that project. But I'm going to turn it over to the subject matter expert, Dominique. And she did have a presentation for you, but it's up to you whether you would want it presented or if you just want her to do an overview for you.
We can just chat a little bit if you'd like, and since you'd all have to turn around and look at your screen. Oh, you've got that one.
Do you know how long the presentation takes?
It'll probably take about 15 minutes. Maybe we could just handle it informally, and I could send you the slides if you...
Yeah, if you have it
Yeah,
ready,
sure.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
How is the best way to plug in?
Pictures with 1,000 words, right?
Hopefully plug and play.
Well, that's always the issue.
It's unfortunate Mr. Breer has left because he apparently was part of the Dudley Master Plan Committee back in 2000.
Look at that, that's easy.
Nifty, wow.
Come right up. There we go.
Wonderful. So thanks again for having us out tonight. The staff was all really excited to hear that Dudley's, looking at potentially updating its master plan soon. I know that there are a lot of exciting things going on here between the Gateway project and CDBG and the recent completion of the OSRP, and so many fantastic foundational things that we can incorporate and build on and synthesize. So I'm just going to go through this a little formally to start, and then we can have some open chat. So as you know, under Massachusetts general law, all municipalities are compelled to create a master plan with certain specific elements. Beyond that, there's not a ton of detail on what exactly those elements need to include, so there's a lot of flexibility, but they all need to include these core themes, these core topics: land use, housing, economic development. You've seen them all before. So in addition to that, many communities like to include different special topics, deep dives. Sometimes it's a subsection on energy, which, or specific village centers, things like that. So those can be built onto a master plan as well, depending on the specific needs of the community. At CMRPC, and I think it's pretty common, we usually approach the master plans from a comprehensive rewrite perspective. And they usually take about 1.5 years. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less. It really depends on the speed and momentum at the community level. Many were really experienced in working with under-resourced and small communities. Sometimes they have no planner whatsoever. Sometimes so I think that it would be a really good fit in terms of being able to work with a community with a part-time planner and a planning board. In terms of guidance, oftentimes what we see is communities establishing a dedicated steering committee, and we will meet with them on a regular basis throughout the duration of the process. It's approximately every month, but there are sort of periods where it's not necessary to convene quite so frequently, but especially at the beginning and then during key milestone periods, it gets a little heavier. So really what CMRPC does is we work with the steering committee and the town staff to really build a community-driven plan that is really unique to the community itself. So in the past year, I've worked on about 10, or the past handful of years, worked on about 10 master plans, and they all not only feel different and look different, but they all are really specific to the community. So the steering committee and the staff and the stakeholder interviews and all of the outreach that we do really create a very specific, focused product that gets at the heart of, the community and its needs and wants and desires. In terms of community engagement, how much community engagement do you need? Our approach is typically to do community engagement throughout the process. We found that it works really well that way, so it's more than just a checking the box. We built a robust community engagement strategy that includes all kinds of tools and methods, and it includes, stakeholder interviews and surveys and workshops and a whole breadth of things. Sometimes it's interviews on the local radio station, sometimes it's more traditional things, but we found that we were able to get really, really meaningful feedback and input that way. So a couple of the things that I think we've been really, really successful at that are a little different is, again, with working with smaller and under-resourced communities, taking a phased approach to master plans, and most of the time helping the communities apply for the grants to actually fund that work. It can be extremely helpful, if not essential, to come up with some matching funds to enable the grants to be competitive. If you are planning to pursue this in the pretty near future, this is the perfect time to move forward, since there are several sort of key grants either open right now or about to open. So if the town of Dudley had a small amount of matching funds, we could even put in those applications in the next month or so that, in the fall or something, when they're awarded, you could start. A couple of the other things that I think are really exciting about master plans at CMRPC, over the last 10 years, we've really not only built a robust comprehensive planning capacity, but we've refined it and sort of gotten creative every single time. So we're doing all kinds of really exciting things that push it. So we are, doing not just traditional PDF and print plans, but also doing like online engaging story map summary version plans where people can dig in as deeply as they want to or not. And we are working on research projects that look at how do we bring implementation into the 21st century through digitization and other strategies. Getting creative with workshop formats. We've had some really fun events in the last year that have really drawn in new crowds and big crowds at breweries and sportsmen's clubs. Fishing game. So yeah, we're having fun with it, and I think the communities are having fun with it too. So one of your first steps upon embarking on this would be to establish a steering committee. Usually that works best, although sometimes communities take a little different approach. Working groups, or if they're committed out, some alternatives. But really what that group would do would be to work very closely with CMRPC to provide feedback and input on pretty much all the steps of the process. Our goal is to do the heavy lifting so that you guys can provide the brain power and the networks to make it a successful product. So, again, as Janet said, there's a whole bunch of wonderful things that you guys have done and been doing that we can build on that won't go to waste, that'll provide a foundation. If we have done them, we can borrow language and where it's appropriate and try to be efficient. So yeah, all kinds of fun things, community surveys, and we work with doing data analysis and mapping, and we have a drone team that'll take beautiful photos. And then again, the funding, perfect time. We have 2 upcoming opportunities that have funded a whole bunch of master plans, sometimes in full, sometimes in phases. The Community One Stop, which closes June 5th, and the EEA Planning Assistance Grant, which we expect to open any day, will probably also close in June. So I think that's enough. I think that answered all your questions that you mentioned so far.
I've got a couple answers to the questions from what I recall. You asked about the cost. So it depends on the community, but I would say anywhere between 100 to 130, somewhere in there, up to maybe 150. It depends on the size of the community.
Thousands, right?
Yes. Sorry. Not millions. Thousands.
No, thankfully.
See, I made it seem better, right? And also, as far as town staff, I do not believe that you would need to hire anyone additional, certainly working with Bill. But we work with the steering committee as far as the outreach. We do the writing, we do the surveys with the steering committee's input. We tally all of those surveys. We coordinate all of the events. So it falls on us to get the job done. And like Dominique mentioned, there are quite a few communities that have done it in phases based on the grants that were awarded. Some of them have limits, like the EEA planning grant that Dominique mentioned. It's either $45,000 or $50,000 is a limit that you could be awarded, so that may pay for a few chapters. So some of them it's gone 3 years because they've had 3 of those grants awarded.
If I may, it was mentioned that we have a part-time planner, and you're suggesting that it wouldn't add to the burdens that he already has to deal with. I mean, he's got a pretty full plate for a part-time guy. We don't want to overburden him. So you folks, pretty much, I think the term that you use is doing the heavy lifting?
Yes.
And I know that Open Space and Recreation, you folks facilitated that, and that's a rather lengthy report. It's quite impressive. If anyone's had a chance to take a look at that, how many pages was that? Better than 200, wasn't it?
For what now?
The Open Space and Recreation?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's online, what town website?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. So that was, I think, very successful. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of resident input on that. That was the one thing I think we were maybe a little short of, and hopefully for something like this, we could gin that up a bit going forward. The payment would be done to CMRPC, is that right?
Right.
Good. Okay.
And as far as Bill, you may have to hold Bill back I think master plans used to be your passion, Bill. So as long as you can hold Bill back, but we would gladly, any volunteerism, we're good to accept that, Bill. But no, we understand that in so many of the communities, a lot of the town planners don't have any type of administrative help either. So we're really taking away from their function to the community. The steering committee, I think, probably has more of a role than the town planner. He may be the contact between CMRPC and the steering committee, but I think more of it falls on the steering committee. So when you put your steering committee together, it's also important to, in Dominique, we have all different types of steering committees, but the groups or organizations or town officials or boards that you want represented on this steering committee, they will help with the outreach as well, trying to get as many of your diverse population to the table as possible to share their comments.
Could you give us a thought in terms of who would likely be on that committee? I assume
Sure.
that there's certain organizations we obviously would want to.
Not only who, but I mean, obviously there could be different from community to community, but if we can get like an idea of how many people are on them as an average and just make up of the board, what the committee and what their responsibilities would be.
Sure, so the planning board, for sure. Well, then you'd have to post a meeting. So maybe two, maybe one. Conservation, possibly. And it depends on some of the chapters that we're working on as well. Some have invited school officials, either a school committee member, a school superintendent, possibly a town administrator or a town manager may be involved in it. Business organizations, you want to hear get the businesses involved as well, especially on your economic development chapter. Go ahead, Dominique.
Oh my goodness, that's a wonderful start.
I picked the easy ones.
So, and you can also, you know, I think having a diverse mix of local subject matter experts is really where it's at. As Janice said, somebody really knowledgeable from the planning board, somebody, you know, who understands the business community, somebody who has the sense of the, you know, natural resources and things of that nature.
So like we have a Dudley Conservation Land Trust, maybe somebody from there.
Perfect.
That's what I was going to mention that.
Yep.
In addition to or instead of a conservation commission, trails, if you have a trails committee, if that seems to be an important to the town of Dudley moving forward, because remember, you're thinking out 20, 30 years as part of the master planning, or 10 years.
We have an agricultural committee too, right? Is that the proper terminology for them?
Yes.
And one of the things that is brought up in here is that component as far as the community is concerned. There's one other group that I was thinking of. We do have a economic development committee,
The Recreation Commission?
recreation commission. I mean, it sounds like we've got a full house here.
Yeah, I would probably limit it to 5 to 9. We've seen those numbers be successful when you start to go
So
too high.
the others would be brought in as a particular portion of this is relative to their function, then, okay.
And also potentially for implementation strategies. So at the end of the master plan, or part of the master plan now, we've rebuilt them and redesigned them. But just similar to you have the implementation chapter now, we do that as well, and as part of the implementation chapter, we provide potential funding sources for some of those implementation plans. But we don't want the master plan to sit on a shelf.
Right.
We want it to be a living, working document and a guide to your board, to future boards, to the future of Dudley.
It is to be a plan.
Right.
In its truest sense. And you mentioned 5, and as I look at this Dudley Master Plan Committee, that was 5 back in 2020, so 2020.
Because you want to have a quorum too, and if some of these members are sitting on other boards,
Right.
you know, it may be a burden, even though they're interested. But I think as far as the implementation strategies, so say for instance you have the Conservation Trust, you have your Conservation Commission, and there were open space implementation strategies, they would be great to move forward to make sure that they're implemented or they're finding funding to fulfill those particular strategies. Short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies are all identified
Yeah.
as well.
You mentioned earlier that if the town had some kind of matching funds, like, how much money do you think we would need to start off with for matching funds? Are we talking like 20,000, 30,000?
That's that magnitude. So specifically, the the Community One Stop, which is open right now, it's highly advantageous to provide 10% matching funds. So if your master plan was, say, 130,000 or 140,000, you know,
So,
So it'd
13,
be
14, yeah.
14,000.
yeah. All right, so.
On the EEA grants, if they're awarded up to 50,000, that's a 25% 25?
It is a 25% match.
25% match.
25%. And you said 25% on 50?
So that'd be 10,000.
On 50,000?
Yeah. No, 1250.
12,500.
Yeah.
12.5.
With some of, not with the One Stop, the one that's due on June 5th, that has the more generous cap, but with some
Yes.
of the others, they're flexible sometimes in terms of what they'll accept as match. Sometimes they might, you know, allow us to credit, for example, if Bill had to dedicate staff time, we could count his time, or you could dedicate your CMRPC LPA hours it depends on the grant.
That was gonna be one of my questions, yeah, okay, that's good.
Especially if it goes over 2 fiscal years, you could use those towards both,
Yep.
and we could include that as part of the grant, and we'll certainly help you with the grant application
Thank you.
and develop that. I think if you wanted to, I mean, the best case scenario is to do all of the chapters at once,
Yeah.
because everything is intertwined. But if not, it's very successful doing it over the course of 2 or 3 years as well. Because even though we may be working on, say, 2 or 3 chapters, we need to bring that say we're not working on transportation, but transportation and infrastructure is so important. You have to bring those factors in to other chapters that you're working on. So we make it work. The data collection,
Yep.
the demographics.
Like, I mean, like, when we were looking at the Stevens Mill project, they were talking about having this trail that came along the Riverwalk, and where it was gonna come up onto Main Street. I mean, like, something as simple as that, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you had a bus stop there, because people could use that trail to access the bus stop and then get to where they need to go, and, you know, that might be under open space or trails, but you also have to bring in the transportation, so I could see how it would all go together. Okay.
So if you would like us to write either of these grants, they are time sensitive, but we could always do it another year too. But you can, you know, let us know how we can assist you with anything related to this.
We have to get funding from the selectmen first, right?
Yeah, I think we need to get on their agenda and go to the next meeting and.
Oh,
have
there
the-
will be some of your agenda.
and explain.
Well, you know, unfortunately, the one-stop program deadline is in early June.
Yeah.
And I think it would be wise to jump on that right now.
Yeah.
Rather than wait for another year to go by.
You think? Okay.
And
Well, the funding is
if you're
there.
ready to, you know, prepare the application, and then I think we could come up with a match somehow. I mean, I don't have a clear sense of where it would come from yet, but I think we could probably figure something out.
If you have any ARPA funds left over, that is an eligible match.
Any what?
ARPA?
ARPA,
What's HARPA?
the federal
Oh,
funds.
yeah, the COVID funds.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've spent all of
I,
that.
yeah, I doubt it, but.
Can I just ask you,
Sure.
Dominique, for clarification? So on the match,
Mhm.
does there have to be an actual cash
For the one,
included with the, like an in-kind with Bill working with us and volunteers?
Well, we did, the Gateway study that CMRPC is doing now was a community one-stop in the community planning program, and there was no local match required for that. I'm sure it helps scoring-wise, but
yeah.
It just makes it that much more competitive, especially
Certainly
with
if
the
you
dollar
commit.
amounts.
So one thing else, you're exactly right, of course. There's no local match required on the community planning grants, which I suspect is the bucket you would fall under. However, the One Stop is increasingly deeply subscribed to. You know, I think last year there was almost $800 million in requests, and they awarded about $100 million, something like that. So, I mean, So they are, and it is increasingly competitive. So, if you can pull together a match of 10%, you'll get bonus points, which are really, really helpful. But there's still a fine chance if we put a brilliant application together that you can get this. Either way, I mean.
Okay.
So the town of Leicester was awarded the master plan
Yep.
last year, Spencer the year before?
Yes.
On the community, yeah. So we've been successful with these grant submissions,
Very,
and also with the EEA as an alternative.
So we would need to get that application in post haste, I mean, right away, effectively.
Get the support from the
Support from the,
select board, town administrator, because they sign all contracts, correct? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you would want to make sure that you have that support.
We were able to add the master plan to the town capital improvement program, which the selectmen have approved. So it's an official policy of the selectmen to have a master plan prepared somehow.
Right.
There was no funding provided,
Right.
but at least it's in there as a.
You said that, like it was written down that, this could cost, I think you said it was $100,000.
We said 100,000 just for estimation
Round
purposes.
numbers, yeah, so.
now, the selectmen next meet on the 20th, which would be town meeting, just before the town meeting, as they typically do, that half hour before town meeting on Monday.
It's not an appropriate time to do
No,
this, I
it's
don't
not.
think.
So it would have to be, the first
Following
we could get
meeting.
to that would be the following meeting, whatever that schedule happens to be,
Right.
which puts it probably the beginning of June. I'm thinking they usually go alternate weeks, so.
I'll have to check their schedule
Yeah.
to see when they're meeting, but
Which is up against your application date, I think, isn't it?
as long as it's not after our application date.
I'm sorry?
As long as it's not after the application date.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we
Well,
could
what's the
put,
date, you know?
we could put the application in regardless, but the thing that we would need to find out from the Board of Selectmen is if they could give us the matching funds, or the 10%, or 25%, whatever it is up front.
I
Which,
think we'll need some
We'll put
letter
it on
from
their
them
next
too.
agenda.
Some signatures and
Well,
some
don't
letters.
worry about it.
say that again?
We'll need a signature from the Board of Selectmen either way.
Yep.
And
Right,
a
the
letter,
of
a
support.
letter, yeah.
All right.
Throw it
So
on their
we
next
would
meeting.
need a request a joint meeting, or at least to be on their agenda.
Agenda, yeah.
And I don't know if either of you might be available to
Of course.
What night do they meet?
make a.
Usually meet on a Monday night.
Yeah.
It's the first and third Mondays of the month, correct, Bill?
yes.
Yeah, so it'd be June 3rd and June 17th are the meetings in June.
Can you write it in 3 days?
No, but we can be ready.
Yeah, we could.
We can be ready.
Okay.
What's the due date?
June 5th.
Oh, 2 days, yeah,
Yeah.
Not even that if they meet in the evening, right?
right. Right.
All right. Well,
I'm sure they would support
Do they
the
need
planning
to
board
see
in
the
this
letter?
endeavor. I don't see why they
It's
wouldn't.
not necessary. All the answers are the same.
well,
And once we start the process, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that we would, like, if we were applying for other grants, we could say, and they asked, like, when was your master plan last updated? We could say, we're undergoing an update of it. We're currently undergoing an update, so that they'll understand that we're working on it. And we don't have to necessarily tell them we have a 25-year-old master plan. Okay.
Correct.
good point.
You know, and for the grant writing, it's certainly important because the master plans, all your plans go through the public process. So you have the town support behind it as well, when you're applying for those particular grants. I know we refer back to them, different plans, with the community development block grant and that strategy moving forward, so.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you very much for attending this meeting. And
Thank you so
for the
much.
invitation.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks.
And this is an exciting process.
Yeah, it is
We'll get this
exciting.
thing, step one, and go
If
forward.
only we had the idea last month.
Well, better late than never, shall we say.
Maybe we've asked Kurt if he
And
thinks that's.
we will be in touch. We'll keep an eye on the calendar. If there's any change as far as that June, what we expect to be the June 3rd meeting of the selectmen,
Okay.
we'll let you know in advance of that, but that would be in this room, and they usually start at 6:30. So that's tentative at this point, but hopefully we can confirm those, the time and date up shortly.
Now, will your board be meeting before that, or do you meet once a month or twice a month?
Well, twice.
Twice a month. We're on the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month.
Yeah, we'd be scheduled the 22nd.
22nd.
Yes.
So just to throw this out, would it be possible to invite the Board of Selectmen to a portion of your meeting? I don't know if you, I would
there a
have
chance
to,
we're
I
not
defer
gonna
on
meet
the
because of
open
town
meeting
meeting?
law.
Yeah, just saying that. Just,
So, well, we have a meeting scheduled for the 22nd. It's up to the board to decide whether you still want to meet
Yeah.
on that night,
Because when's the town meeting?
The 20th.
the
the
20th.
Monday, 2 days before.
Okay.
So I think we, if we have this as an agenda item, it's important to move forward with it, so I would encourage you to meet that day,
On the 22nd?
on the 22nd.
Okay. And do you think we would have any luck in inviting the Board of Selectmen to come to one of our meetings?
Possible?
Yeah. Okay.
We could send the invitation.
Yeah,
and
sure.
See what the
And I think-
response is.
And I
Yeah.
think to explain the timeliness of it,
Yeah.
because of the grant deadline, it's an opportunity, it's once a year for the community one-stops.
And just to be sure, that the deadline was June what?
June 5th.
June 5th.
And
Yeah.
as one, I think that it would be brilliant to do this in one fell swoop. It would be much more efficient and effective, but worst comes to worst. If for some reason the June 5th deadline doesn't work, we can help with an EEA planning assistance grant application and try for a phase 1. We've been really successful helping towns secure funding through that program. So
Okay.
either way, I think it can go forward.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
again, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you back here again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Nice talking with you.
Nice meeting you both.
Thank
You
you.
too. Good night.
Good to see you again, Bill.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much.
Okay, next item on our agenda for this evening is the approval of minutes, meeting minutes from April 10th and April 24th.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion, since I was actually at the meeting on April 10th, to approve the minutes as presented. I also want to give a big, huge shout out to our clerk, Aura, who did a great job in transcribing all 75 pages and 14,000.
Mr. Chairman, I take pleasure in seconding that motion and heartily approve of Mr. Edmondson's comments. Aura has made us sound better than we really are.
Okay.
Thank
so
you.
all- All in favor for April 10th?
Aye.
Unanimous. April 24th, Mr. Edmondson, that was the one meeting you were absent on, so.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the meeting minutes for April 24th, 2024 as presented.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous with Mr. Edmondson abstaining because he was absent on that meeting.
Here are the originals for signature.
All right.
Pass those around. And that takes care of that. So next item on our agenda. We're down to standard business, discussion status reports on finishing construction of and acceptance of uncompleted, unaccepted subdivision streets, including Pearpont Estates, Rocky Hill Estates, Country View Estates, Eisenhower Drive, Tobin Farm Estates, Lyon Estates, and Sophie's Way. Do you have anything to report on those particular streets?
No.
No? Number 2, under standard business, inspections and actions associated with site plans. We have Legacy Landing Country Club Acres, SEP Solar Oxford Avenue, JD&D 24 Oxford Avenue, Stevens Mill, solar project at the landfill.
In your binders under standard business,
Yep.
we have a request to extend the SCP solar project. I understand that the work is almost done, they're just doing the final grading and site stabilization. That deadline is June 30th. They weren't sure whether they'd be able to finish it by this June 30th, so they have asked for an extension to June 30th of 2025. And the other one is for the solar project at the town landfill, which is also moving along. They have, I guess, some issue with some ordering of materials that is slowing the project down, so they've asked for an extension from June 8th of 2024 to June 8th of 2025.
Okay, so basically 2 extensions for both solar projects currently ongoing in Dudley.
Both are, moving along well, and I think it's just a matter of,
I guess I didn't realize it's the same company doing both.
Yeah, I just saw that too. Is that Amoresco doing the Dudley LLC one on Oxford Road? There's Bob Bukowski. It's the same guy from Amoresco.
I don't think so, but now that you ask, I'm not positive.
How long has Oxford, the one on Oxford Road, been under construction? Years now, right?
There was a delay in getting started. You had approved that one quite a while ago. I think they waited almost 2 years before they began,
Before
so
they began, yeah,
I think
National,
they've been underway for 2 years.
it was approved and then it was on delay,
Right.
so.
So I would say they were almost done, but not quite.
Pass these back, Mr. Chair.
But
Alright.
it was an in-house delay by the solar place and not by anything else that
It
was.
was National Grid.
Correct.
Yeah, it was National Grid.
National Grid stopped
equipment.
all solar programs from going forward until they got all the solar credits in order and everything.
So what is the alternative? If we don't grant the extensions, work stops?
Good question. You'd have to fight with them over it, I'm sure, and that would be an economic hardship to them if they couldn't finish the project. So I'm sure there would be
What benefit would there be to the town to do that?
none.
This doesn't really tell you what's left to be done or anything. It just says
Yeah, I
extend.
thought last time it was, all they needed was the grass at the bottom of the
Yeah.
hill, and they were waiting for spring.
So via email, Rob Bukowski told me on Oxford Avenue, construction is complete and they're working on final stabilization of the site. We had a lot of rain,
Yeah.
probably waiting for the grass to grow, that kind of thing.
Okay.
On the landfill project, he said, the latest update is that construction is expected to be completed at the landfill project this summer. However, the final electrical equipment lead time is unknown, so I'll have to update you later on the final expected completion date.
So these 2025 dates are worst-case scenarios. They're asking
Yes.
for as much as they can get, in
Mhm.
hopes that everything happens sooner than
Right.
that, I guess.
So
Yes.
they're both asking for a 1-year extension.
Yes.
All right, what's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we grant the extensions for both solar PV development on Oxford Ave and the solar PV development for Dudley Landfill Indian Road. The first being to June 30th of 2025, the second being to June 8th of 2025.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
We'd have to separate it, because I'd have to abstain from that landfill one.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll
me
let
too.
you- Let me amend the motion.
Okay.
We'll just go with the Oxford Ave extension to June 30th of 2025.
So the motion is for Oxford Ave only to June 30th, 2025. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion, Mr. Clark, second by Mr. Chinaki, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna vote against it, not because I'm against allowing them to progress, but just simply because I don't like any of the solar projects whatsoever. And I'm just kind of voting, hopefully there's other people in the town of Dudley who feel the same way, so my just protest votes against these type of, example, what do you wanna call it, businesses or,
Tree killers.
Vote is 4 to 1. Second one is for the Dudley landfill. And it's to be extended until June 8th, 2025.
So, Mr. Durgan, you would have to recuse yourself on this one?
Yeah, me too.
And two, so we would have.
Are
only
you
three
actually
voting.
abutters
Yeah.
to the property? Okay.
So we would have 3 voting, and all 3 would have to approve.
No, 2 to 1 would be
2
a
to 1?
majority, yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I would propose or offer that we approve the solar PV development on Dudley Landfill Indian Road extension to June 8th of 2025. Sorry about the dates there. June 8th of 2025.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll make the second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And a simple majority is good, right, Bill?
Yes.
2 to
All
1.
right, so I'm voting against it for the same reason.
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
1 to 2.
I second it. Okay. Planner's plate, anything else on your?
Oh, well, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Last meeting, Mr. Wetruba brought us some very good news regards to the Stevens project. I wonder if he had any further updates and more good news to share?
They keep pulling up those big dumpsters and bringing in new ones.
Okay, well, that's good news. Thank you.
So I have 2 items for planner's plate. The town is installing some EV charging stations here at the town hall.
Wow.
There's a,
That cost.
I was about to say the same thing.
there's a state grant.
Okay.
I can look up the numbers, I don't have it off the top of my head. It was somewhere in the order of 60,000 for the stations. The town has a match of 13 or 14,000, something like that. So there are 2 dual stations, so there'll be 4 spaces. They're going up by the back doorway here at the upper parking lot, by the handicap spaces.
Yep.
So work will be starting next week, I believe. It'll take maybe a week or 2 to do the construction work. And I'm not sure how long it will take to actually charge them up, but they should be done, in short order.
Mr. Chairman, to the town planner, are these public access?
Yes,
Okay, and the town doesn't have any solar vehicles as such at this point, do they?
not that I know of.
Electric vehicles, not
Electrical
solar.
vehicles, well, solar, electrical, EV, if you will, or hybrid, or plug-in. So we don't have any currently, so these would be,
Right.
again, public access.
Yes.
And payment is required?
Yes.
So
Yes.
may
Credit
town
card.
make a buck on this perhaps?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, 60
Interesting.
grand sounds about right.
All right.
So you're saying the cost to the town was about $15,000 for 4?
In that magnitude, I don't have the exact
4
numbers.
stations,
What's that?
for 4 stations.
Yes.
So there must be an ROI here, right? What's the return on investment? Do they have a number?
I wasn't involved in any of the planning for
Oh, I'm
this.
sure our
I was
procurement,
just, there was a
expert
Zoom
has
meeting this
ROI.
week to coordinate the construction. I was a part of that, so that's how I found out about it.
Okay. All right.
And then the other item is more good news. The Central Mass Regional Planning Commission has awarded the Economic Development Committee its Economic Development Award. So the EDC is getting an award for all the work that it's been doing. There is a ceremony at the annual meeting in June, which Richard will probably be there,
Mhm.
at Mount Wachusett, where the award will be presented to the EDC. So I think it's good news that the EDC is being recognized for all the work that it's been doing.
And this is part of the Gateway project?
That's the most current activity, but we've also done corridor studies and economic development plans and things like that, so.
How much are they getting? I mean, everything's, follow the money, right?
Getting a plaque.
A plaque?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Cost $100 grand.
All right. Well, recognition has its own
Yes,
value.
that's
so,
right.
All right, I thought they were.
For all the good work that they've
I thought I
done.
heard grant in there somewhere.
No, no money
They're
involved.
being granted a plaque.
Yes.
All right, well, that's good news in its own way, thank you.
Yeah, they could put that with their stipend.
What's that?
The plaque can go right with the stipend.
So that's all I had for planner's plate.
Okay, comments from the planning board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment this is probably the wrong place for it. It's political in nature, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. This has nothing to do with anything that's spoken about tonight. It's just an overall comment, so it's not in response to anything that we've talked about tonight or anything. I just kind of want to point out, and this is just personal opinion, but I realize the town of Dudley has revenue issues, trying to pay to make things work. I know the town's doing what we can to make things happen. I was at the school building committee or school committee meeting, I want to say a couple months ago, and they were talking about budget. And one of the members of the school building committee, or school committee, excuse me, mentioned something along the lines of, we're facing this budget crunch and we can't do this every year. We can't simply cut. We're not offering the kids anything. The kids simply aren't gonna have, they're not gonna have a regular education at some point in time if we have to cut every year. And so, I think it's great, things that are happening in town, things that we're making happen. I think it's great that the state has different grants available for items that may or may not be necessary. I just think it's kind of sad that that our high school is allowed to make cuts every year and to, maybe this is the wrong word, but to deteriorate as a building every year. And for some reason, the town just doesn't want to do anything about it, the majority of the town. I just find it kind of a little bit of a sad turn, and we just wish things were different. Thank you.
If I may, I'm going to piggyback on that for a moment, if I may. Going back to this master plan of 2000, there is a vision statement that is here, and it reads, in the year 2010, we want Dudley to be a cohesive community that provides quality education. So to your point, this was recognized many years ago, and I listened. Obviously, the struggle that the schools go through annually in terms of their budgets, and if you've looked at some of the meetings in terms of the Board of Selectmen recently, I think the term that was last used, as I remember it, was the school budget as they see it is unsustainable. And that situation is unsustainable. Somehow, some way, we've got to find a way to provide for the future of this town and the future of this town of the kids that are in the schools. I had the opportunity to act as a guide at Samuel Slater Experience for some fifth graders from Dudley Middle School just this week, and they're an interesting bunch of kids, very lively, energetic bunch of kids, and it was a pleasure. And I hope that all of us in the future will have opportunity to deal with those youngsters as they become adults and move on, and provided with the right tools, I'm sure they'll be productive and valued citizens in the town of Dudley as future goes. And it's a shame that we do have to struggle with that. And I wish I don't know, I'm short of buying a lottery ticket. The selectmen don't seem to have any ideas as to how to come up with that other than overrides. And we know how unpalatable those are in terms of trying to get voters to support additional taxes. So hopefully the state will come through at some point and empathize. We missed the opportunity, as I understand it, with Shepherd Hill. So we've got a 50-plus-year-old building, if you will. It's not going to get any better. And if we get back in line, it'll be a 75-year-old building before we get to the top of the list again.
All right, so like Dan said, it's funny that we can't get money for the school, but we can pay the walking trail from the state grant money. We can get money for a walking trail that goes nowhere, but to do a playground or something, the state doesn't give us none.
It's a conundrum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Anything else? Comments from the audience?
I was just curious, I was listening to the discussion from CMRPC about the grants. So, still Steve Watroba, Lawrence Road. I just want to make sure I understood the grant process. So there's two potential grants that you can go for, right?
Yep.
And one of the grants would pay for the whole thing up front. You do it all in one shot, not in chapters or sections. But the town has to match with 10%. Town has to come up with 10%. So if it's $130,000 for the whole program, town's gonna come up with $13,000. The other grant program, they only give you 40 or 50,000. So you have to do it in sections.
Yep.
And she said that some towns actually went back and got the grant year after year. But they want 25%. So that's $12,500 if you use your, right, example of $50,000 grant. But then you go back for year two, and if they give you the grant again,
It's another 12.
they're gonna want another 12,500. And then if it's 150,000, you go back in year three for another. So now that's like $37,000. 12,500 times 3, right? Anyways, so I just wanted to make sure that I was hearing that correctly and make sure it wasn't lost, so that when you try and when you go to kiss the ring and try and get the cash, you probably want to really go for the program that would, I don't remember which one was which, but maybe that's the one you want to focus on really going for.
The one that's due June 5th is the
Yeah,
big one.
yeah, because that's the one, it's like, oh, if it's a one-time shot of 13,000 and you can get the
Well,
grant.
it's a one-time shot for this year. If we miss this year, we can always do next year, but, I mean.
But you get my point.
Right.
That when you're selling it
Yeah.
to the powers that be, that, look, hey.
It's a
you know,
once-a-year grant, so if we
Right.
can get in this year, great. And if we have the money to put with it, makes us move up the
Right.
ladder better. Like she was saying, there was, what, 800 million?
800 to million. and,
$800 million applied for, they only paid out 100 million, so about 1/8.
Right.
Well, there's no guarantee you're gonna get a grant, even the application can go in and then not be awarded.
And
At least
just,
we can get a plaque out of it, hopefully.
yeah, so, and just to piggyback on the discussion, what Dan was saying about, schools, and then Tom was saying about we can get the grant money to pave the walking trail, but we can't get the money to do this. That's true, it's unfortunate, but you don't not take the grant money to pave the walking trail just because,
Oh, yeah.
so it's like, it's kind of like, it reminds me of Mason Road, the sidewalks. Like, well, we couldn't get enough money to pave, to run the sidewalks all the way down Mason Road. And, I've actually had people say, well, why didn't they run them, why'd they stop? And I explained it to them, because
The money ran out.
didn't have the money. And it doesn't mean that they're gonna stop there forever. We might be able to go and get another bite at the apple, but
Right.
that's it, that's all I had.
Okay.
All right, good night, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We depend on you to be our audience.
So other business, set the special meeting date, May 20th at 6:30 PM, Shepherd Hill High School, outside of the auditorium prior to the annual town meeting.
That's our normal pre-town meeting time to get together and talk about
So
the
we'll
articles.
just get together to go over the changes that we've got on that one warrant article, and that's the only thing that we're speaking about that night, is the one
Correct.
warrant article.
Right.
Okay,
So you can decide then who will present the article
Yeah.
and how that will be handled.
that's no problem. And our next regular scheduled meeting date will be May 22nd, and right now, the only thing we would have on the agenda for that would be to invite the Board of Selectmen to discuss
So far, that's all that we have, yep.
Yep. And we have a voucher or payment for Stonebridge Press.
You have that in your binder under invoices?
Chairman, I make a motion that we pay the invoice indicated for Stonebridge Press, the amount of $147.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? And no other town notices or correspondence, Bill?
Nope.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, under correspondence, I understand that we sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen?
We talked about that at the last meeting?
We talked about that at the last meeting. Have we
Yes.
received the response?
I have not received a response,
And the
no.
letter was sent about the 16th of April, as I understood it?
Yeah, I would say around there, yeah.
Have
Get
we
the-
had appropriate postage on there, or did it come back postage due or something?
Went into recycling.
It probably did. Well, I haven't watched in its entirety that 3-hour and 16-minute selectmen's meeting this past Monday. But maybe a little more, almost 2/3 of it that I have, I don't have any recollection of them mentioning the letter, nor did I see anything on their agenda indicating receipt of such. So if it hasn't found its way to the dead letter office, then it must be sitting in a file somewhere.
I will verify that they in fact did receive the letter, and if they took any
Maybe we need to send
action.
these things, return receipt requested going forward. Realistically, we wouldn't really need a stamp. I mean, it's just a walk down the aisle, down the hallway.
Making motion to adjourn.
Hey,
We have a
second.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Thank you.